right now, the Dow Jones opened predicted to be down more than 500 points. The market realizing this isn't a game of chicken. This thing is on after China announced it will hike tariffs from 10% to 25% on a total of $60 billion worth of U.S. imports. Let's bring in Kristen Welker at the White House. All right, Kristen, let's talk tariffs for a moment. There is a right way and a wrong way to characterize tariffs. And the way the President of the United States is doing it is absolutely wrong. U.S. consumers and businesses up front pay for these tariffs. Why is it that the White House continues to mischaracterize, it's not subjective, these very basic facts? If the president wanted to say, listen, this thing is going to hurt, but in the end, it's going to help us. But right out of the gate, he's not telling the truth.
It seems to be a political tactic, Steph, and that is why it was so remarkable to hear his top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, break so sharply with President Trump and acknowledge that it will be U.S. consumers, U.S. businesses that also bear the brunt of these tariffs. Now, of course, Kudlow made the point that China will hurt as well. We were wondering what the retaliation would look like from China, Steph, and now we see it. So this trade war is escalating by the day. President Trump just this morning tweeting directly to President Xi Jinping saying this: I say openly to President Xi and all of my many friends in China that China will be hurt very badly if you don't make a deal, because companies will be forced to leave. And he urges President Xi to make a deal with him. Now, when might that happen? We don't know that any talks have been scheduled imminently to try to restart these negotiations. We do know that, according to Larry Kudlow, it is very possible that President Trump will meet with President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit. That's set to take place next month. But, Steph, jitters across the country and across the economic world as we watch to see how these new round of tariffs will actually touch down and have an impact on American consumers.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.